It's a new decade, you know what that means. A new Scream movie. Hello, welcome to this spoiler-free review for Scream 5, also known as Scream 2022, but I'm going to be calling it Scream 5 because that's really what this movie is. And I just actually went and saw it. I was a big fan of it. I'll start with that. But I will say, take into context the fact that Scream is one of my favorite franchises in horror. I like Nightmare on Elm Street a lot. It's my absolute favorite. So it's no surprise that Scream is my second favorite, considering they're both made by the same person. And then you have Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but that's a whole different can of worms. This movie is like watching if Wes Craven was still directing. I went into this movie, I was very nervous because Wes Craven wasn't in charge of it, and I didn't want this to be the first bad Scream movie. And right when I went into this, I started enjoying it right out the gates. This felt like something Wes would write if he was still around. And I think this is truly a love letter, not just to the fans, but this is a love letter to Wes Craven and everything he's created. Scream 5 is made by Radio Silence. I'm a bit of a Radio Silence nerd because of how much I loved Ready or Not, so I will say that maybe that sways my opinion on how much I liked this movie. I can definitely see how there's some franchise fatigue in this. I can see that there's a lot of jokes that may not hit with people if it's not their comedy, as well as the fact that there are some moments in here that don't have the Scream charm that Wes Craven always brought to the franchise, which is totally understandable, but to me, I still felt like Wes Craven was in this. I want to go into the cast. The cast was phenomenal in this movie. I loved the new actors and the returning actors. The new actors did a phenomenal job at fitting into the Scream franchise and feeling like new and organic characters. And the old franchise characters, it's just great to see them back. Can you really hate a movie that has Neve Campbell, David Arquette, and Courtney Cox all returning to reprise their same exact roles? This movie takes from all of the Scream movies. But the nice thing about it is it's not in your face. You can watch this Scream movie without having seen the other four. I actually brought a friend to this movie who hadn't seen any Scream movie in his life, and I brought a friend who'd seen every Scream movie, and both of them liked this movie equally. I think I liked this movie a bit more than they did, but that's because I'm very into Radio Silence films, as I said previously, and this movie just works for me. I want to talk briefly about the humor a little bit more, like going in depth on it. The commentary in this movie that the humor was wrapped up in is a commentary on modern horror movies. There's a lot of references to modern horror movies, as well as the whole idea of restarting a franchise but keeping the same storyline. That's in this as well, which is kind of expected when it came down to Scream, because if you know Scream, you knew that was going to be the discussion, so that's not even a spoiler. It had a lot to say about modern horror movies, and I think that's part of the reason the humor worked so well for me, because everything in this was talking about toxic fandoms, and I think that's amazing because we see so many fans complain about these new movies coming out instead of being happy that they have the original and that someone tried something new. And I think that's something that gets discussed a lot in this movie, even if it's under the radar for the most part. I do love the discussion of toxic fandom. It was nice to see the original Ghostface voice actor return because I cannot express how good his voice is. Every time I hear Ghostface's voice, I just get pumped. His voice is phenomenal. So to have him return in this role made me incredibly excited, and I feel like most horror fans, and most Scream fans specifically, are going to be excited to have him back. Like I mentioned previously, as I'm going kind of in circles a little bit and I'm all over the place, I apologize for that. But this is truly a love letter to all Scream fans and to Wes Craven. It's very sweet to see this movie made in honor of Wes Craven, and I'm very happy that Radio Silence is the people to head it. I feel like if there's anyone who could have made a Scream movie in 2022, it was definitely Radio Silence, and I don't want any more Scream movies after this one. I'll be completely honest, I'm a person who loves Scream and would love to see it continue, but I think this movie is a great way to end the entire franchise. I'll be kind of mad if they pull the Halloween treatment on this movie, but I guess we'll see. Overall, to keep it short, just so that this is a video that you kind of just get an idea of what the movie's about, I enjoyed it. Honestly, if you like the humor of Radio Silence, you like the Scream movies, I think you'll have a good time. Will you have as good of a time as I did? Maybe not, because this is my movie. This is a movie that was made for me, right? And that's not to say this surpasses the original. It definitely doesn't. I love the original movie. That's never going to change. That's probably always going to be my favorite of this franchise. But to see this movie surpass every one of its sequels for me was not what I expected. I walked in seeing those trailers and said to myself, this isn't going to be good. This looks like a straight up slasher movie. I don't see any comedy in the trailer. I don't see anything like that. And I was very blown away by how amazing this movie is, because I thought it was going to be awful. So what I'll say is go in with your expectations low and you'll like it more than you think. If you go in with your expectations high, you may not like it as much as you think you will, but you never know. Maybe you won't. I quite enjoyed this movie. I hope you do too. Stay tuned for a spoiler talk whenever that's coming. I don't know for sure when that's coming. Depends on when this one gets uploaded. But yeah, I'll be going more in depth on my thoughts on the movie, all the plot points that I want to discuss, and all the things that just kind of either sat well with sat right with me or didn't sit right with me. And that's what I'm going to be discussing in the next video. I'll also be wrapping up the Scream franchise eventually. I kind of got thrown off because I'm moving this week and I was going to make the entire Scream franchise Ryviews and I didn't, so I do apologize for that. So make sure to hit that like button and subscribe down below if you want to see the rest of those. And I'll also be doing a Scream ranking the franchise eventually. But yeah, that's all I've got for now. It's hard to talk about spoiler-free things without kind of a list of bullet points. But even then, like, this movie is one you don't want to get spoiled. So stay off the internet, stay off Twitter, especially, stay off a lot of things, and just go see this movie. But yeah, that's all I've got for you all today. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.